तकाक्ष पठी सुधाघट मुद्रिके कस्तवास्ति वर्णने चतुरो नर कचरोधवा शारदे करुणानिधे सकलानवाम्ब सदा जना चारणादिमगीत वैभव पूरिताखिल धीक्ते शारदे करुणानिधे सकलानवाम्ब सदा जना सकलानवाम्ब सदा जना सकलानवाम्ब सदा जना.
Thank you, dear students, for giving a delightful beginning to this occasion. I now request the dignitaries and senior professors to lit the lamp and offer a floral tribute to Gandhiji.
Sir.
Thank you, dignitaries. Professor M.S. Shekhar, Director, Gandhi Bhavan, University of Mysore, to welcome the August gathering.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮೈಸೂರು ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯದ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕೆನಡಿಯನ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಫಾರ್ ಗಾಂಧಿಯನ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್, ಗಾಂಧಿ ಭವನ್ ಮಾನಸ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಮೈಸೂರು, ಈ ಎರಡು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳ ಸಹಯೋಗದಿಂದ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಥಾಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಚೇಂಜಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್, ಈ ಎರಡು ದಿನದ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ನಾನು ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆಲ್. Very warm welcome to you all for this national webinar on Gandhi and his thoughts in a changing world. At the outset, I would like to welcome Professor G. Yamankumar sir, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, for this morning inaugural function. A heartily welcome to you, sir. I also take this opportunity to welcome the keynote speaker, Professor G.B. Sivaraju, the plenary speakers to today. Welcome, sir. Professor Meena T. Pillai, Professor Yamankumar, and Professor H.M. Rudraswamy, a warm welcome to you all, sir. I also welcome my colleague and friend, Professor G. Vijay Seshadri, who has worked hard to organize this webinar, and also Professor L. Devikarani, Chairperson Device in English, to this morning inaugural for all the support and encouragement. I heartily welcome Dr. Prachi Kaul, Director, SICE, New Delhi, for this morning's inaugural, who has joined us virtually from New Delhi. I warm welcome to my colleagues from the Center for Gandhian Studies, the colleagues from the Postgraduate Center, Mandya, and the University of Mysore. I also affectionately welcome to print media, visual media, the technical staff of the Vijnana Bhavan, who are taking care of this webcasting and online streaming. Last but not the least, I extend a very warm welcome to all the online participants of this webinar who have registered for the national webinar from across the entire of India. Now I request and also welcome to the Professor Srinath sir also.
The director of Gandhi Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I extend a cordial welcome to you. Up next, I request Professor Vijay Seshadri, Coordinator, Center for Canadian Studies, to read out the concept note of the webinar.
A very good morning to you all. It's a pleasure to be here. After, say, in 2012, we had an international conference on higher education, cultures, and literatures, Canada and India. And after that, we are having this national webinar. It's a pleasure to be here. A warm welcome to you all once again from the Center for Canadian Studies, Department of English, University of Mysore. I do consider it as a privilege and honor to be part of this event, which is supported by SICI as well as our Mysore University and the support of Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor G. Yamankumar. Now to the webinar concept note. No doubt, Mother Earth has provided enough for humans to feed, but cannot quench the greed of humans. In a world that is extremely in flux due to information and technological explosion, the process of integration and transformation of economies, political systems, and societal change has affected environment, education, culture, and has made the global space and hence interdependent. Human beings are pulled between tradition, modernity, postmodernity, reality, illusion, and hyperreality, and it becomes imperative for an individual to come to terms with the self and the fast-changing environment. Under such a situation, a person is on the lookout for ways and means to come to grips with himself or herself and the world around. One such solace is undoubtedly Mahatma Gandhi, the man and his works. For generations, without doubt, Gandhi, the man and his works have withstood the test of time. webinar attempts to take a relook and remember Gandhi and the relevance of his thoughts and works to the present time and epoch. Through Gandhi, the webinar will focus on society, environment, education, and politics vis-a-vis cultural spaces to rethink and change the traditional policies and practices in the world of academia. Can Gandhi's ideology sustain the onslaught of rapid scientific expansions of power and thoughts? These and other related relevant issues will be the focus of this national webinar, which is an endeavor reflecting Gandhi's words. I quote, "In a gentle way, you can shake the world." Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful brief into the webinar. I now request Professor M.S. Shekhar to introduce Professor G. Yamankumar, Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore, to the participants.
It is my humble duty to thank Professor G. Yamankumar, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Mysore, who encourages us and is the backbone of all the constructive activities and book publications of Gandhi Bhavan. It's a matter of proud for us that Professor Yamankumar, sir, the distinguished Vice Chancellor of such an achievement, has been leading the country's prestigious university, which is of a country whole. Professor Yamankumar, sir, has published more than 448 research papers in national and international peer-reviewed journals and presented more than 150 research papers in national and international conferences. He has over 1,446 scientific citation and I indexed 24 for his research contribution as per of now. He has given invited and plenary lectures in a large number of national, international meetings, conferences. Professor G. Yamankumar, sir, has successfully guided 20 candidates for PhD degree and currently 8 students are working towards research degree. He has sanctioned major research projects by DST, AICTE, UGC, and DIETY, and also international collaborative research projects to the tune of more than 5 crores. He has been member in a scientific societies like Indian Society for Technical Education, life member, Computer Society of India, life member, Indian Science Congress Association, life member. He has conducted several workshops, national and international conferences. In a view of his academic excellence, Professor G. Yamankumar, sir, was awarded the Millennium Plaques Honor, Prime Minister Award for contribution in the field of science and technology by Indian Science Congress Association in the year 2018, Upadhyaya Samman State Level Award from Upadhyaya Moodvele Art Foundation Udupi and Teachers Day Award 2017 for the best teacher from the Lions Rotary Club Mysore. He has been very successful in designing and running the joint MOU programs between Hungary University, China, and University of Mysore and generating funds to the tune of 10 crores. Yes, academic collaborations with European Commission of Education, a network research project where 6 premier institutes from India and abroad work together for modernizing and enhancing Indian e-learning educational strategies. Research collaborations with University of Barcelona towards enhancing quality, assurance management and benchmarking strategies in Indian universities, research collaboration with Chinese Academy and Science Beijing. Professor G. Yamankumar, sir, has served at different positions at the University of Mysore. He has served as a chairman of the Department of Computer Science for 9 years. He was a chief coordinator, Vijnana Bhavan, from the year 2009. A multidisciplinary projects are 100 crores from MHRD and 50 crores from UGC for supporting advanced research. Co-coordinator Information Communication Divisions, co-coordinator Chinese program from 2008, Director International Center from 2015 to 17. Coordinator G Governance for Coordinator I Performance Computing. Professor G. Yamankumar sir was the member of Maharaj Education Trust, Mysore, which is a premise educational institute, governing council, a member of the Gopalaswamy Shishu Vihar Trust, Mysore, and governing council member, Sharada Vilas Educational Society, Mysore. Member of Academic Council, Yuraja College, Mysore, Autonomous. JSS, Autonomous Government College of Mandya. Professor Yamankumar sir has visited several countries as a part of academic exchange and research collaborations. In invitation to Naples, Italy, Khartoum, Sudan, Moscow, Russia, Jingzhou, Hungary University, China, Wuhan University, China, Oman, UAE, General Geneva University, Italy. I request the Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Yamankumar sir has declared the webinar open to deliver the program, sir. Thank you, sir.
Elrigu namaskara. Very good morning to you all. Today, 2 days national webinar, which has been organized by Center of Canadian Studies, Department of English, and Center of Gandhian Studies, Gandhi Bhavan, on the topic Gandhi and his thought in changing the world. I am very happy to declare this webinar inaugurated in University of Mysore. Respected Professor G.P. Shivaraju, Senior Gandhian, who is going to give the keynote address. Professor Vijay Sheshadri, the organizer of this webinar and coordinator of Center of Canadian Studies. Professor M.S. Shekhar, the director of the Gandhian Studies. And also Professor Srinath from Danyalok has come here all the way. And also Professor Devika Rani and all other colleagues of PG Center Mandya and also PG Center Mysore, and different participants in this webinar across the country, and all other participants and media persons. I'm very happy to be here. At the outset, I feel privileged to honor and delighted to inaugurate this national webinar, the Gandhi, His Studies in Changing the World. We are organized by the Center of Canadian Studies and Center of Gandhian Studies, University of Mysore, with the financial support of Sastri Indo-Canadian Institute and Delhi and the Ministry of Education, Government of India. At a time when the whole world is grappling with severe issues relating to socio-economic, political, cultural aspects under the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, I am glad that Mysore University has mustered up courage to face the pandemic boldly, have hardly proved the quality of the teaching and research in its researchers and students. I am proud to say that during pandemic period, our university has conducted more than 130 webinars during that period. The best way to find yourself, to lose yourself in the service of the others is Gandhi, said by Gandhiji. As one such endeavor in this national webinar, which focuses on Gandhi, the man, his ideas and thoughts in relation to the changing times. The theme of the webinar is topical, and it helps one to take the stock of the Gandhi, the man who worked even after 150 years of his birth to conceptualize essential vitality, the Gandhian studies, Gandhian thoughts and ideas in tech-ridden, demonstrated in 21st century, reflecting what Gandhiji has said. The future depends upon what you do today. The future depends upon what you do today. And there are 7 plenary sessions of the webinar, standing testimony that I have already said. And I congratulate the organizer of this webinar for well thought out and also relevant theme, keeping with these times. Mysore University, which has got 103 years old and as on today, the time is again submitted itself, the scrutiny, and also what we call regarding the quality research, teaching, and providing the quality higher education to the students, hailing from the different different backgrounds and social group of ununiformly. Being the Vice Chancellor of this prestigious university, I am proud to state that at this juncture, our university is going for the 4th cycle of NAC accreditation in this month. The university is always worked towards achieving the motto Nahi Jnanina Sadrisham, meaning nothing equals to knowledge, and has always supported the academic, interdisciplinary and endeavors and research. I hope the deliberation that will take place today and tomorrow will be of immense benefit of the teachers and also researchers. I believe that the youth of this today will go home after listening to these deliberations of this webinar with at least good understanding, if not better, if not better of Gandhi. The man, the man has worked relevance to the present world and in flux. I wish what has happened for the purpose of the national webinar and stands justified. So I thank all the organizers and also the Department of Gandhian Studies and also the Canadian Center for organizing this seminar. I wish you all the best to all the participants who are present here, all the researchers who are present here and physically and also online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your inaugural address and declaring the webinar open.
Good. ಪ್ರಾಚಿಕಲ್ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಡೆಲ್ಲಿಯಿಂದ ಅವ್ರು 11:20 ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಕೀನೋಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀರಾ? ಓಕೆ, ಬಟ್ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಾಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ
ಸರ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್.
I request Professor M.S. Shekhar to introduce the keynote speaker, Professor G.V. Shivaraju.
Professor G.V. Shivaraju is a retired professor and unique Gandhian amidst us. He has immense love and affection towards Center for Gandhian Studies of the University of Mysore. He is instrumental in establishing a replica of Sabarmati Ashram and 27 ideals of Gandhiji in Gandhi Bhavan at Manas Gangotri. I am very happy to invite Professor G.V. Shivaraju to deliver the keynote of this webinar. Welcome, sir. Shivaraj, sir, welcome.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Shall I start now?
Please.
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Okay. Pranam Mani, sir.
Namaskara.
Namaste.
Good morning to everybody. Indeed, I am grateful to Dr. M.S. Shekhar, who is actually a key person in organizing this international webinar on a relevant topic today. It is very important to be actually discussed at this critical juncture. We are all actually spent nearly more than a year in this critical atmosphere where the COVID-19 has made the whole world actually suffer like anything. Anyhow, if you go through the Gandhian principles, all the remedies, whatever we are facing, the present modern world is facing, we can find the solution for all these problems. I would like to mention the great quote by Arnold Toynbee, a historian, England historian. He said, if anybody asks me to show the salvation method for these intricate problems of this world, I show it to India. Indian way is the only way to solve the intricate problems of this world. That is Gandhian way. Look at the statement he made, and this shows even all the problems which the world is facing today is actually because of the negligence, because of the cornered the Gandhian principles and life of the great soul. Actually, most of you might have heard this great statement of Mahatma Gandhi. This speaks of the whole philosophy of Gandhi. The whole world actually thinks seriously about this. That's why we have neglected so much. Even we are not imparting the human values which Gandhi has taught for 79, more than 7 decades. That's why we are facing all these problems. Actually, I would like to quote one or two statements made by the great stalwarts. Even Martin Luther King, long back he said, Martin Luther King he was mainly responsible for this American civil disobedience movement. Even once when Obama has addressed the Indian Parliament, he made a beautiful statement remembering Gandhi. This is very much important now. This is the right time to remember all these great words. He said when addressing the MPs of India, he said, I am standing before you as the President of America because of your Gandhi. See why he said actually because of the by the great leader Martin Luther King, the American Afro-American people, they could be able to get this citizenship and also the voting rights. That's why Obama actually he was allowed to contest the election. He got the political right, and that shows actually he has inspired most of the people in the globe. This particularly one statement I would like to mention here about the nature which we have actually misused the whole world, the nature. That most probably you might have remembered, all these things. I quote, nature has enough to provide for everyone's need, but not to his greed. One more statement made by Gandhi. Simplicity is the essence of university. That has been actually written in front of Sabarmati Ashram in Sabarmati. See, all these things actually, I would like to mention, if time permits, I would like to quote another 2-3 statements made by Gandhi himself. See, this shows we are misusing the nature. That is why we are suffering all these things. Whatever the nature has given to us, that we are not sharing among the people of this world. The exploitation, too much exploitation of the nature, that is actually we are all paying heavy penalty for that. That's why today Gandhi people are saying that Gandhi is relevant today. No, I would like to say here, Gandhi is not relevant only today. He is relevant as long as the human world survives. Martin Luther King, who was inspired by Gandhian thoughts. You see, Martin Luther King has heard the speech of Dr. Johnson of Harvard University that changed his entire life. He said, actually, Gandhi is inevitable to this world. We have to ignore him. If you ignore him, at our own risk, he said, whole world will vanish if you ignore him. Even Obama, when he visited Madi Bhavan, there actually I copied it, that statement made by Obama. In his visitor's book, he said, Gandhi is hero not just to India, he is the hero of the world. He said. So what all these statements made by the great persons, even today in this modern world, when the people are actually bent upon acquiring more money, amassing the wealth, and the corruption, all these things, nepotism, all these things, because we neglected Gandhi, whatever he said and left to us to lead a happy and peaceful life. And that's why peace is actually the two important contributions he has given. One is truth and non-violence. That is a great thing. Of course, he himself has said in 1936, I have nothing to say to this world, new thing, truth and non-violence as old as the hills and mountains, he said. Even though the man who preached that he has practiced. That's why he's become great. He's a great soul. He's a Mahatma. And even the great leaders, I would like to quote one or two, actually, the statements and appeals made by the international community. On 24th June 1984, 53 Nobel laureates appealed to the international community. So after observing the political, economic, and social condition of this world, prevailing in this world, see this, they said this world will not survive if the same thing continues. That's why what they appealed, we appealed to all the 53, they appealed to the international community to follow Gandhian thoughts, economic thoughts, social principles. And that's why it is another important thing which actually we are all proud of the great soul. One man actually, one article I have read a few months back, he mentioned one thing. below the portrait of Mahatma Gandhi, one sentence was actually written. He quote about the relevance of Gandhi. That's really should remember here. The man who could not be killed. That is actually the statement made below the portrait of Mahatma Gandhi. It shows nobody can kill Gandhi. Physically, we have killed him. But regarding the principles and other things, his life concept, nobody can kill as long as the human world survives. And that's why even today, the people are remembering. See, actually, the terrorism, violence will not be the solution. You are seeing, look at actually the persons who involved in this creating bad atmosphere, including all the great dictators. You take all the dictators, whether it is Hitler or Mussolini, even Saddam Hussein. See, what is the end? Look at the end. Only we can get the peace only by following the love and affection, by practicing that. So that's why Gandhi has never allowed anybody to follow violence. Even that's why he faced a lot of problems. He was killed because of that only. These fundamental leads, actually, they are not allowing now what the tendency has developed. A tendency has developed among the youth community, particularly the intellectuals also the part of that. See, we are all misleading. We are misinterpreting Gandhi. We are misleading the youths. Youths are the supreme asset of this country. What we are doing now, you are not getting the value-based education in the present system because we are all bent upon amassing the wealth. I would like to quote the statement made by Gandhi on education itself. We have forgotten totally. We are not thinking seriously about the character building or life building education. He himself has quoted, what is the genuine education? I quote Gandhi. Genuine education does not consist of cramming a lot of information and numbers in mind. Not it lies in passing the examination by reading a number of books, but it lies in developing character. It is a real education which inculcates true virtues in human life. That's why where we can get the values today. Today's education has become syllabus oriented, exam oriented, job oriented, money oriented. We have become totally materialistic today. That's why we are facing a lot of problem. Just I would like to quote one or two incidents where just actually you look at the present scenario in the whole world. I would like to mention here 3 important countries. Their per capita income is so much. America, Japan, and Sweden. Their per capita income is so much. Do you know the death rate? 54% of the deaths due to suicide because of the frustration and other things. See, all this, we are having so many statistics on hand, but all these things, if we did not apply our mind, seriously think about this, and actually, if we did not implement the thoughts and his ideas, definitely the globe has to face a lot of problems, what we are facing today. See, that's why many stalwarts, I would like to mention 1 or 2 dignitaries who are actually said more about Gandhian principles, and that shows the relevance of Gandhi. And Einstein, of course, I said about that. One more statement he made on Gandhi. Why I am quoting all these things? By reading this, by understanding the importance of that, definitely we may be able to actually know the importance of these thoughts and deeds. A role model for the generation to come. That's what I am quoting Einstein, Albert Einstein. I believe that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men in our time. Look at the statement of all the political. Do you know? I would like to mention here. In 1935, he purchased one new house in America. There, the only portrait is displayed on the wall. That is Gandhi's portrait. That shows how much actually admiration, how much actually the Einstein used to love because of his thoughts and deeds. Tagore, actually, I would like to mention Tagore's statement also. Mahatma Gandhi came and stood at the doors of India's destitute millions. Who else has so unreservedly accepted the vast masses of the Indian people as his flesh and blood? See, truth awakened truth. That is actually a statement made by Tagore on Gandhi. He himself has called Gandhi as a Mahatma, great soul of this universe. And one more incident I would like to quote here. Actually, you might be observing on 2nd October, the whole world is actually observing as the Non-Violence Day. The 30th January, where actually fanatist has killed Gandhi. That day we are observing as the Sarvodaya Day. So that's actually Gandhi's economic and social principles, the political principles also. Gandhi he spiritualized the politics. He never considered politics is for power or for power mongers and for selfish things. And he wanted to, I would like to quote a beautiful statement made by Gandhi on politics. For him, politics, he said, politics for me is a spiritual avocation. Just look at his 7 social sins. All these 7 sins, that first actually social sin, he said, politics without principles is a social sin. See, that shows actually he wanted to spiritualize the whole the universe by actually by following the important ethics, morality in the universe. So this is actually I would like to mention here one or two important things. His quotes are actually his sayings itself that shows we have to impart, if I have to imbibe, we have to make it as a compulsory. Do you know, I would like to mention here, it's a great happy thing. In China, for the past 2000, from 2012, China, they prescribed Gandhian principles in their textbooks right from pre-primary to university level. Right from pre-primary to university level. There are, do you know, there are 260 universities of the world has introduced the Gandhian Peace Center. 300 stamps was published on Gandhi. 500 biographies published by Gandhi. See, all this shows that Gandhi is relevant today, and even he is going to be relevant. And that's why now we are neglecting what we are actually, we are meditative practice, and the younger generation, particularly, I appeal to the teaching community and the leaders of this world, don't actually mislead the youth. See, we are always commenting about the differences between Gandhi and Ambedkar, Gandhi and Bhagat Singh, Gandhi and Subhash Chandra Bose. Why we should be? There are some differences on theory, differences on their policies. I don't think they are actually against the society. As if that's why we are actually we are never studied Gandhi or never studied properly Ambedkar. Such a great contribution Ambedkar has given to this whole world, not only for India. And that's why by following his principles and look at, I would like to mention here, this is most relevant today to remember this. Gandhiji's concept of an ideal state, his dream of India. This speaks of the whole philosophy of Gandhi. Just I quote this, everybody should remember this. I quote, India of my dreams, the title is there. I shall work for an India in which the poorest shall feel that it is their country, in whose making they have an effective voice. An India in which there shall be no high class and low class of people. An India in which all communities shall live in perfect harmony. There can be no room in such an India for the curse of untouchability or the curse of intoxicating drinks and drugs. Women will enjoy the same rights as men. We shall be at peace with all the rest of the world. We shall be at peace with all the rest of the world. This is the India of my dreams. This is what Gandhiji has said. And this is the dream actually. See, we never try to actually fulfill the aspirations of Gandhi. Even at by the end of his life, actually he was very much came to the conclusion that in future days, the people may not follow my policies. And look at the village condition today. Village condition, how much they are, since we have become materialistic today, and look at the politics today, how it is going on. Nobody bothers about the basic principles of constitution. No equality, no fraternity, no justice. And we have neglected it totally. And of course, it's a great contribution by Ambedkar and Gandhi's vision also. The directive principles is what it says. Almost all the principles of Gandhi actually depicted in the directive principles of state policy. And this is also one of the important statements made by Gandhi. I would like to quote here how we are neglected the villages. If we neglect the villages, of course, the heart and soul of this country, soul of India, lies in the villages. He said. But look at the statement. We all try to at least to regenerate the condition prevailing in the rural areas. I would like to quote about this because this is very much relevant. The educated people should think over it. I quote, villages have suffered, quote Gandhi, villages have suffered long from neglected by those who had the benefit of higher education. We have neglected. We had the benefit of higher education. What we are country, we are not returning back to the villages, and we are not contributing anything for the upliftment of the downtrodden or really removing the illiteracy. I continue. They have chosen the city life. The village movement is an attempt to establish healthy contact with the villages by inducing those who are fired with the spirit of serve to settle in villages and find self-expression in the dedicated service of villages. And he has given a call to go back to the villages. What we are doing now, look at the condition of the cities, city people, and we are almost majority of the people, we are actually concentrating on amassing the wealth. What for? How much we need for leading a happy and peaceful life? And that's why the globe actually should remember. It is remembering today. You look at the great personalities. He has influenced on everybody, on all the leaders of this world. I don't know whether how many of actually remembered this. Once we invited Anil Shastri to Gandhi Bhavan, the son of Lal Bahadur Shastri. Actually, I was not thought of this thing. He mentioned one thing about the relevance and its importance. He mentioned, he asked all of us who have presented there, he said, you can find statues of Abraham Lincoln only in America. You can find statues of Lenin, Stalin, or Roosevelt only in Russia, Churchill only in England, Mao only in China. Whereas you can find the statues of Mahatma Gandhi in almost all countries of the world. This clearly shows the relevance, his thoughts, and his life. And that is why I don't know how many of you have you observed in Parliament, Churchill actually he called Gandhi as an half-naked fakir of India. You know, for the past in the last 2 years back, in front of the same Parliament House of Commons, Gandhi statue was installed. And these are not that by installing the statues and other things, we are not actually remembering Gandhi, not through that. And the only thing is what we have to do now. We need Gandhiji's principles, and people like Gandhi can contribute. They can actually do something good for the life. And of course, one of the statements made by the great person, I would like to remember here. So this country needs lakhs and lakhs of Gandhis, not lakhs and lakhs of Bill Gates, not lakhs and lakhs of Bill Gates. See, we are seeing Gandhi. We are kept the currency. Actually, the photo is there in our currency, in almost currency. What we have to do, we have to take Gandhi into our minds and hearts. And that's why even the political field, the economic field, the social field, equality, everything will be solved. All problems, we can find the solution. And by following Gandhi, it is relevant. Of course, I am happy. I thank Dr. M.S. Shekhar, who has actually selected the great, our Professor Yamankumar and other great solvers are there. And you are going to, in another 2 days, this is going to be a most memorable program. And this actually, we should now, it is the right time, we have to actually take Gandhi to all the nook and corner of this universe. Otherwise, the world will not survive at all. This is not my statement. I have not even a single word is mine. Whatever the great persons has expressed on Gandhi and his thoughts, that I am sharing with you. I am thanked to organizers, and especially Professor Shekhar has given me an opportunity to share my little thoughts about this. I wish this program a grand success. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shekhar.
Thank you,
Thanks. Again, sorry, I am leaving here. Indore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for reinstilling the faith in all of us by giving us Gandhi as a remedy. I'm sure his time-tested principles shall stay as a solution for all our modern problems. Up next, I request Dr. Prachi Kaul, Director, Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, New Delhi, to address the participants.
Namaskar.
Namaste, Prachi. How are you?
I'm very good.
Gundo.
Yeah. You can take 25, 30 minutes. It's not just 10 minutes. You have your time to talk about industry. And I would like to introduce Dr. Prachi Kaul. She was of great support way back in 2012 when we organized a conference in Mysore. And she did visit Mysore University, and she addressed our students as well as our research scholars and faculty members. And our association, long, it goes back to almost a decade now. And I request Dr. Prachi Kaul to address the participants regarding Shastri and its various programs and endeavors and support.
Okay.
A hearty welcome to you, Dr. Prachi Kaul.
Thank you, Dr. Sheshadri, for taking us, taking me back to year 2012 when I visited. It was a lovely visit, and I cherish that visit of mine. I hope pandemic allows us to move further beyond our home and beyond our states and provinces. And I wish that I will again be with all of you at your campus very soon.
Yes.
With that aspiration, I hope I'm not going to take much time, only 5
You can take it. We have time, nothing to worry.
Well, I agree. I have other engagements as well, and
No.
I'm sure there are going to be people who would be adding more value to what I can to this forum. So thank you so much for giving that opportunity. First of all, good morning to everyone, and I'm indeed pleased to be part of this inaugural session. Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute have been, and Mysore University, I would say, is a long-term associate. University of Mysore, have a Center for Canadian Studies that have been nodal in bringing collaboration between the university and the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. And so we were able to connect both the democracies of the world, like India and Canada. And this association is such a strong that we have had wonderful events, wonderful activities, and we have produced jointly wonderful partnership development grants, which has enabled into building the capacity of not just faculty of the university, but also building the capacity of younger lot of researchers, I would say, the students and younger faculty as well. Excuse me. Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute is a binational organization, as you all know, and we are mandated by both the governments. And in India, we are mandated by Ministry of Education, and in Canada, we are mandated by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is Global Affairs Canada, which is Foreign Ministry of Government of Canada. I can say that our mandate is to build academic and cultural relationships between India and Canada, and how we do it is by undertaking programs and providing services that facilitates and sustain binational dialogue that builds up understanding and interaction. These relationships that we facilitate encompass both institutional and individual members, and they form the institutional as well as individual linkages as well. We are binational organization, as I said, and we have a unique mandate which operates in two major directions. First, it serves as a financial support system for academics and research program in terms of offering different fellowships and other awards in both India and Canada. Our fellowship and our programs for academicians and researchers is it's a kind of a wide platter that we offer, and I'm very pleased that there's no domain of knowledge that remains untouched by Shastri. When I say that, I would like to bring to your attention that till year 2003-04, we were actually only focusing on humanities and social sciences and developmental studies, but that was the time when we became truly binational, which means that our organizational structure has undergone some changes, and we became truly binational, by which we have invited Indian member institutions also to join the member council of the institute. And that enabled forming of Indian member council. And in the very first go, in the year 2004-5, we have had around 45 Indian institutions joining the member council. These were all prestigious institutions, including first generation IITs, IIMs, national law universities, all major central universities and major state universities as well. Mysore University did join in the first stint, which means that our association started not just, we were working together for long, but formally we have started engaging with Mysore University in the year 2004-5, which means that greater collaboration happened thereon. But unfortunately, not much have been done on the domain of Canadian studies ever since, I think, 2012-13, when Government of Canada, wind up the program that was named as Understanding Canada program. But winding up that program did not affect the opportunities that Shastri was providing, because Government of India has increased the funding to the institute to many folds, which has enabled different other kind of opportunities for members like University of Mysore to engage with Shastri Institute, and through Shastri with Canadian institutions and organizations. I would say that the programming that we offer is widely spread for all segments of academia and research fraternity. So starting with undergrad, like for bachelor's degree program, we have internship program that enables our students, undergraduate students, to go to Canada. And similarly, you can bring in Canadian students to your university. For 3 months' time, it is all funded by Shastri Institute. There have been other partnerships as well formed to increase the number of grants, and we have successfully partnered with MyTax Canada, that has enabled, like last year also, despite being COVID, we have supported more than 100 internships for Indian students to go to Canada. Not in because of the pandemic, there was no mobility involved, but virtual fellowships, virtual internships. And similarly, there are different programs for doctoral students, master's students or researchers, those who are enrolled for postdoctoral programs at your university or universities there in Canada that are member of Shastri Institute. So we give you an opportunity to invite students and send your students to Canadian universities for an internship for the period of 3 months. Similarly, other programs, as I said, for PhD programs and postdoctoral programs, they also enable staying or mobility. With the mobility involved, they can allow you to be in Canada or India for up to 4 months' time, all funded by the institute. So competition is tough, but if you have quality and content in your proposal, you will certainly win over the award and will be able to encash the opportunity for that matter. Similarly, we have different programs for faculty members as well. We call it Faculty Mobility Grant, which not just supports the faculty to be in Canada, or for you to invite Canadian faculty to come and be at your campus for 3 to 4 weeks time. And in your time or in your collaboration, what you can do, you can co-teach a course, you can develop a course, or you can bring in a component to the existing course that you are offering. You can do a small research project, or you can incept a research in terms of seeding it and then taking it forward with the help of other programs from Shastri Institute or from other funding agencies. So there are different opportunities for the faculty also. There's another component that it supports academic administrators, directors, deans, vice chancellors, registrars, pro-vice chancellors, etc., to learn about the ecosystem, to learn about a larger orientation of Canadian and Indian institutions in terms of its administration involved. Similarly, we have institutional collaborative research grant, which allows partners to form a team from India and Canada, and then develop a collaborative research proposal, submit it to Shastri Institute for funding, and we support the same. There are other programs that allows you to avail the opportunity to organize binational academic events like conferences, seminars, workshops, and things like that, lecture series for that matter. there are publication grants as well. So what I mean to say that there are opportunities for all segments involved in academia and research fraternity. And these are opportunities that can help you build up the connection and take it forward in a very in a manner that is sustainable. So not just, if a student goes to Canada or a student from Canada comes down to India, they have an opportunity to engage for a while, but they can sustain this engagement through other programs that we offer. So they can make use of those. So a faculty who goes to Canada or comes from Canada can develop a research, co-teach a course and do many more things involved, and then also make use of other programs that can help them sustain their collaboration for future. So these are the opportunities that we offer exclusively by Shastri funding and also in partnership with other, with other similar-minded, like-minded organizations in India and Canada. Very pleased to share with you that right now we are having 116 institutions as part of our network. So first was how we operate and deliver our mandate, as I said, is by serving financial support system for academic and research program. And second is we are a binational network of leading academic institutions, which we consider as knowledge partners in generating linkages and collaboration. So Shastri Awards and programs provide opportunity for the recipients to gain first-hand experience in India and Canada through our vibrant intellectual activities. We try to engage with higher level interactions between member institutions in both the countries. So I would say it's unique in having 116 plus premier academic institution as its members. You name a good institution, it is there on our board to collaborate on, and we certainly encourage member institutions from India also to come together and form a team, and then there can be institutions from Canadian and to come together and form a team, and then this team can collaborate. So there can be a number of ways to collaborate. We try to focus on our people. We try to foster strong talent and develop intellectual and cultural linkages, which ultimately result into increasing research outcomes. Of course, that results into improving the quality of life and long-term relationship. Not much from my side, Dr. Seshadri. I would like to congratulate Dr. Hemanta as well, the Vice Chancellor, the top leadership of your university. He's such a wonderful person. I got a chance to interact with him very closely while he was part of our Vice Chancellor Summit between India and Canada. In 2019 February, he participated, and I think the University of Mysore represents a wonderful example of international collaborations, and it is not so that it has started now. It lies in the history of University of Mysore, how you have incepted the idea of international collaboration and how you have taken it forward, and you are continuing to. So I congratulate Dr. Hemanta for taking it forward. Top leadership matters a lot, and I think he understands the value to be member of Shastri Institute and optimizing the benefits and opportunities that this membership brings for your university. So it's a proud moment for me also to say that your university is part of our network, and I'm sure the sentiments are same from your side. So I once again congratulate. Coming back to this topic on Gandhiji, I'm very pleased that Dr. Seshadri, you have put this together. Gandhiji have been part of our integral programming, ever I remember, because you cannot frame Gandhiji in one way. There's so much of versatility in his personality, in his character, in his teachings, that it is so very diversified. In last 15 days, I'm very pleased to share that we have supported 3 or 4 events on Gandhiji, and one was like on his approaches and impact on visual art, design and visual culture in India. Gandhi as a designer is something that not very many people have thought of, but it was so wonderful to engage with the fraternity that has dealt with this particular aspect so well. And I enjoyed the deliberations a lot. Similarly, there have been other events on that has brought out the relevance of Gandhiji in understanding modernity and feminism. There were Gandhi thoughts and practices and perspective from the intellectual history of communication. So there are varied aspects of his personality that we can take into account and consider learning from the perspective that he has provided by his in terms of giving his life as an example. I would be very pleased that the deliberations go in a direction that they lead us to better future and give us insights that we can take forward for the time to come. We have been very particular about organizing with great enforcement the events around 150 years of Gandhiji's life, and very pleased to share with this community that 2 events were also organized at Parliament Hill in Canada on Gandhiji and his life, and Shastri was privileged to be given this opportunity for that matter. So I would say Babuji and Bapuji. Babuji is great Sri Lal Bahadur Shastriji, whose name and legacy we carry, the Shastri Institute carries. So Babuji and Bapuji are very close to our heart and very close to our programming as well, for that matter. And with their guidance, I'm sure Shastri Institute is going to flourish and support its member institution in collaborative manner. Once again, all the very best for the deliberations, and I hope everyone is keeping safe in the time of pandemic, because we are experiencing the surge in numbers again. So please take care of yourself, be healthy, be happy, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prachi, for being part of this inaugural and keeping the participants, giving the information about Shastri and its various endeavors for supporting academic programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving us brief history and activities of Shastri Institute. Let us renew this association for more projects. Our collaborative work will certainly add more life and value to students and academicians. We look forward for the same. Dear participants, now we break for the tea. Please stay online.
One minute. Professor Meena? Good morning. Yeah. What time would you like to go on air? We'll break for tea for 20 minutes.
Tea break and everybody.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm ready anytime. So take your time.
We'll break for tea for 20 minutes, sure. And then say by 12 we'll start.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Then is a tea.
ಹರಿಹರನಿದಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿರೋದು ಇವರು. ಓ
ಮೇಡಮ್ 12 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ
ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ?
ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರಿ 12.
ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ?
ಹಾ.
ಹಾ.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Start ಮಾಡಲಾ?
Oh, different.
Ready na, Devendra?
Okay.
Well, good afternoon and welcome back to this post-tea session. I'm really proud and I feel, very immensely delighted to introduce Professor Meenati Pillai, a dear friend of mine and a well-known Canadianist and an expert on film studies. Professor Meena Pillai will be talking about uh, Gandhi in the era of in the post-truth era, histories and contexts. Uh, Anybody who looks at Professor Meena's CV will definitely feel envious because the kind of achievements she has, got really makes one proud to be associated with her. I have just culled out some important things to talk about Professor Meena and her academic pursuits. Professor Meena is currently Professor of English at the Institute of English, Kerala, University of Kerala, Trivandrum. She is also the director of the Center for Cultural Studies. She was also the director of the School of English and Foreign Language. And her academic career spans for almost 3 decades. And she began her academic pursuits with her doctoral work on American Gothic fiction with a Fulbright doctoral fellowship at the Ohio State University, Columbus in 1995. Most of her work, is an intersection of women's studies and cultural studies. And her two postdoctoral projects, they were on gendered nationalisms in Indian and Canadian cinemas. She was also a Shastri Fellow, the School of Cinema, University of Concordia. She has published a series of essays exploring the cultural politics of Kerala, Kerala's modernity, popular culture's negotiation of Kerala's gender histories, Indian cinema shaping of the national imaginary, and most recently, Kerala's gender cultures in the age of new media. Her papers have appeared in journals such as The Ariel from Johns Hopkins University Press, South Asian Review, Journal of Creative Communications of the Sage, Bioscope Sage, Economic and Political Weekly, and her essays are also published by Oxford University Press, Sage, Cambridge University Press, Orient Black Swan, HarperCollins, Zuban, Routledge from London, British Film Institute, and Bloomsbury, among others. Professor Amina is also a recipient of the Fulbright Nehru Academic and Professional Excellence Award, a teaching award and research award. And in addition to her teaching, she has also completed a monograph on the politics and possibilities of women's descent in India. She is also engaged in two other book projects currently, a pioneering monograph on Malayali masculinities on screen, which would be a sequel to her Women in Malayalam Cinema. She has also edited a collection of the same-sex narratives from Kerala. The manuscript is under review. And her writings, are reflected in numerous articles in newspapers such as the Hindu, Times of India, Indian Express magazines like Frontline, many of which, like Feminici and other complements, discuss the fractious gender debates in Kerala. She has occupied various academic positions and one as professor at the Institute of English, University of Kerala, Center for Cultural Studies, director of it in the University of Kerala, School of English and Foreign Languages, University of Kerala. She was also a Fulbright visiting professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, and she has also worked at the Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, in the past. She was also nominated as a jury member for the Science Festivals on Documentary in 2017. She was also on the jury for the Kerala State Film Awards 2016, and she's as an expert. She was also on the Committee on Research in Universities in Kerala, a part of the Kerala State Higher Education Council in 2015, Selection Committee member of the 17th Film Festival of Kerala 2012, in the year 2012, Selection Committee member of the 6th International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala 2013, and she has also occupied, apart from these, various membership in administrative and academic bodies. She has also received a number of awards, and I would just mention some of them, the honors and awards. 2019-2020 Fulbright Nehru Academic and Professional and Excellence Award, Teaching and Research. 2017, she got the Dr. N.A. Karim Award for the Best University Teacher. 2011-12 Meenakshi Mukherjee Memorial Award for Best Academic Publication. 2003-2004 Commonwealth Fellow. 2001-2002 Shastri Fellow. 1995-96 Fulbright Fellow. I am indeed immensely pleased to invite my dear friend, Professor Meena T. Pillai, to deliver her plenary session of this academic session of this conference. Thank you, Meena, for being with us, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Vijay. All the dignitaries on and off the, I don't even know whether I can call it dais, but this platform. I think, these are things that I haven't sent Vijay. I don't know, he culled it out of things that he got online. But as I stand before you today, in a sense, I think my journey has come a full circle, because I began from the University of Mysore as I was a younger scholar and Vijay was a senior by maybe a year or so. We all began our journeys as poor scholars visiting other libraries across India, most often on buses or trains. We were looking for fellowships, and Veniloka was always there. I want to place on record my gratitude towards Veniloka for making me what I am. So the University of Mysore being, the nearest haven of, research materials, and Vijay and others, Ravi, all of them were there. And I still remember my forays to the university, the way in which that camaraderie, the way in which the spirit of, sharing resources, of sharing friendship has, have in very significant ways contributed to my journey in the last 30 years. So beginning from the 1990s to 2021, I come back to, in a sense, to where I began. I remember those majestic portals of the university where we had fantastic seminars, Shastri seminars and so many conferences. Every time Mysore University, the University of Mysore used to invite us, younger research scholars. It was a pleasure to come there. So I come back to where I began, as I say, and I come back to a dear friend, who has, I think, maybe in innumerable ways, modeled the ways in which, I have tried to engage with academics in India. And thank you, Vijay, for being part of this journey. Thank you for, being with me through this journey. Thank you so much. Coming back to a very important aspect of, the Gandhian legacy, if I can call it that. Maybe Gandhi is also part and parcel of the way we live our lives in India. But today, when I look back at maybe, an immense, vast sense of history, the legacy that Gandhi has bequeathed us, not only as a distinct philosophical oeuvre, but as I said, a very definitive way of life that we often talk about. If at all, there are certain commonalities to being Indian. Indian is such a diverse term. We are so disparate in that sense, because I don't have anything in common in that sense with people from faraway cultures like in the Northeast, but we still claim a certain kind of a national identity. And I think that claim to that commonality, claim to that kind of a common reservoir of cultural and philosophical and spiritual truths and beliefs, all of it have largely been defined by what Gandhi has done in the 20th century. So this is a common legacy, and I would like to begin from there. But as I was also thinking about, I talked about this deep friendship and academic bond that I have shared with the University of Mysore and my friend, Professor Vijay Sheshadri. All the time, as young scholars, as young research scholars, we used to believe that we would like to speak truth to power. That was from where we began, because that was the purpose of being an academic, we thought. Being bold enough to stand up and utter, to stand up and speak truth to power. When I say speak truth to power, I'm also trying to shift. I'm also trying to focus on a certain trajectory. Again, I began by talking about my trajectory, but also a certain trajectory that the word truth itself has traced in the last century or so. We know of a poet in English departments, we know of a poet who said, "Beauty is truth and truth is beauty." In our own philosophical traditions, we have been told that the supreme being is truth, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. We over a period of time, we have reached a point where we realize, as especially at the turn into the millennium, as we have these fragmented kinds of digital narratives, our own faces, our own sense of ourselves, in a sense, have also been fragmented, because I'm just a digitized image on a digital platform as far as you people are concerned. So that is also a point where we begin to think about these larger overarching truths, which in a sense need to be questioned. So we cannot but begin to talk about or to question this sense of monolithic truths, these monolithic structures, these monolithic truths. And we arrive at a point where, say, for example, the multiple narratives that many of us are posting on digital terrains today, where each of us seem to be articulating our own truths, our own experiential kind of truths, the micro truths of our lives. So we arrive at an understanding that there are multiple truths, and all truths, in a sense, are also relative. So from this kind of a monolithic understanding of some kind of a superlative truth, a monolithic truth, we come to fragmented, maybe relative ideas or understandings of truth. But then, even as we say that we arrive at these kinds of understandings of truth, I want to emphasize that the idea of post-truth, in a sense, is different from this. To say that truth is relative, to say that there are multiple truths, is not the same as saying that we are, or what I mean by that is the post-truth, because the post-truth is different. A post-truth is when facts do not matter, because public opinion is shaped by that which appeals to emotions and personal beliefs. So you see how it's a very heavily loaded term, post-truth, and how it is used to describe a broad stream of events and attitudes frequently perceived as a threat, particularly to science and politics. For example, the distrust of science found in post-truth societies is often seen as degenerative and destructive of democracies. I think it was in 2016 that the Oxford English Dictionary posited this idea of post-truth as, the word post-truth itself as, sorry, the word of the year. So in 2016, it was a word of the year, and we have political scientists, like Ari Elmeri, who understands the term post-truth politics, sorry, as describing a predicament in which political speech is increasingly detached. It's not COVID. I think I just choked over a word. Since it is post-truth, we tend to choke. So political speech is increasingly detached from a register in which factual truths actually do not matter. So this is where political theorists like Paul, can I just take a minute? Thank you. So, where political theorists like Saul Newman, he lists a number of what he considered typical traits of post-truth. He says propagation of falsehoods, lies, misinformation, outrageous exaggeration, and a distortion of reality, and much more. So you see how this complicates the terrain, because there are constant slippages. We're talking about slippages between facts, between knowledges, between opinions and beliefs, with people accepting only what they believe in or what they emote with. So there's this huge paradigm shift in the way truth begins to be perceived. This also means that on one side, truth is being challenged, but on the other, this challenge is a strategy for exerting certain kinds of ideologies or establishing particular kinds of political dominances. And that is where I particularly, in the context of Gandhi, and the way he's being co-opted by different quarters, by different contradictory ideologies. I want to talk about a term that in 2005 somebody called Stephen Colbert coined. He said, "It is not truth that matters; it is truthiness." Because whatever feels like truth, it need not be truth. But whatever feels like truth, even it is not necessarily backed up by facts, that truthiness is what has become important to this generation. Now, what is also most alarming about this is that a post-truth era in which all of us are today, it challenges not just the idea of knowing reality, but it poses a challenge to the existence of reality itself, where we express an alarming incredulity. Vijay and I, when we were students, younger students, not that we are much older, Vijay, at least I'm old, you're not. So, when we were students, it was a time when we had begun talking about postmodernism, and the incredulity towards meta-narratives. But today, we express an alarming incredulity towards facts. And, we don't want to believe certain facts alongside a complete credulity towards any fact that fits our agendas. So this is where I said there are constant slippages, there are constant problems, and it's at multiple levels that we have to tread this kind of a very slippery terrain. Now, as many of you are literature students, it's slightly outdated. In fact, I still think that Freud is extremely relevant to some of the things that we seem to be discussing in contemporary psychoanalytic terrain. And Freud talks about a pleasure principle and a reality principle. And he says how the reality principle always keeps the pleasure principle in check, because we're constantly running this check. I just might not want to be here today. I might want to go and do something else. But there is a reality principle which will tell me that, come on, Professor Vijay Seshadri has invited you, and after all these journeys, you cannot let him down. So the reality principle which always keeps the pleasure principle in check. And what is the issue here is that in post-truth, it is the other way around, where a global trend seems to be catching up, where people feel bold enough to bend reality to fit their opinions, rather than changing their opinions to the exigencies of reality, if I can call it that. So what I'm emphasizing before I actually move on to Gandhi, what I'm emphasizing is the time in which we live, the era in which we live, and with the kind of emphasis that it has on post-truth. What I would like to most emphasize there is its affective resonance. It is so affective. It actually plays upon the affective terrain, our emotions, So, and this is where I particularly want to bring in Gandhi and place him squarely within this post-truth era, because Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, I think, is as much a historical fact as he is an emotional appeal for all Indians. So this is where the emotional in Gandhi, I think we need to see that. So as much as we talk about a series of facts, historical facts towards which no kind of amnesia that people like Jeevan Devi have spoken about, no kind of amnesia can actually shut out the historical fact that Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was and continues to be. But at the same time, we also need to understand that along with that factuality, along with the reality that he embodied for a certain kind of a politics that made imaginations around the nation possible, along with that, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi is also an emotional appeal for all of us Indians. He was one politician who constantly engaged with truth, given the recurrence of the notion of truth or satya, in Gandhian discourse. Without satya, there is no Gandhian discourse. So truth or satya is so central to Gandhian discourse. Now, in him, one sees the historicity of the truth of India's tryst with the empire. In order to talk about that historicity, in order to understand it in all its historical complexities, we really need to go back to Gandhi. So the kind of tryst that Nehru speaks of at a later point of time, India's tryst with destiny, was also a tryst with the empire. And in order to understand the historicity of India's tryst with the empire, we need to go back to Gandhi. And in him, we also see the emotional appeal that he made to this empire. So he was playing on that emotional appeal, and by playing, I definitely am not talking about it in a negative sense. But what I'm saying is it's so much crucial to Gandhian philosophy that this appeal to the other, that emotional appeal that we have to make to the other, the appeal for a certain sense of ethical and moral being, that Gandhiji all the time did. I think this emotional appeal, which is so crucial to his philosophy, is what makes him easy prey to the strategies of post-truth. I think this is the first point that I want to emphasize. Making it extremely complicated to talk about his relevance on one hand in the age of post-truth, and his co-option on the other to the strategies of post-truth. So both of these happen at the same time. He's so relevant because in an age where the idea of truth is slowly slipping by, who else do we invoke other than Mahatma Gandhi? So he's at the center of that quest. a national quest, if I can call it that, that is so central to our imagination of what the nation itself means. The moral and the ethical core of that nation means. We begin that quest with Gandhi. So he's so relevant in that sense to the age of post-truth. But at the same time, there are things, that makes it very easy for a certain kind of a co-option of Mahatma Gandhi to the strategies of post-truth. Now, to give a very concrete example, you think of Swaraj, what Swaraj meant to Gandhi. Now, in Gandhi's understanding of Swaraj, self-rule, it's ironic sometimes, when I think of the way Gandhi, what he did, the magnitude of what he did, because I think, when he was coming back to India, he was writing the treatise, Hind Swaraj, and incidentally, he wrote it in Gujarati. But then it was such a subversive text that even before he landed in Mumbai, the British had banned Hind Swaraj, which was written in Gujarati. Now, what Gandhi did was he actually translated it into English. Now, what the British colonial masters thought was, a text in English, Hind Swaraj in English. In Gujarati, it was dangerous, but in English, what is it going to do? How does it matter if he translates it into English? Because in no way is it going to affect us. Who is going to read this English treatise? Now, in 2021, when I begin my classes on Indian writing in English, when I begin talking about Indian history, I begin from not only Gandhi, but also Macaulay's Minutes. And in order to teach Gandhi, I use Macaulay, and both of them come together. And it is with Hind Swaraj that I begin my classes on Indian writing and India's tryst with a certain language, which, as people like Gauri Vishwanathan have said, it is not by brute force that India was conquered, it was by a language. So Gandhi's understanding, so this is a subversion that is so much part and parcel of Gandhi, that he used a text in English. He wrote something in English, he wrote something in Gujarati, translated it into English. And today I use that as a text to talk back in a very entrenched post-colonial manner to the powers that be, to the powers that tried to mold India in a particular way. But from our own post-colonial locations, we invoke a certain kind of an agency to talk back to the empire. And I use Hind Swaraj as a primary text in that talking back. So if you look at Gandhi's understanding of Swaraj or self-rule, he said that it lived in the moral heart of the people. What a brilliant way of putting it, that Swaraj, ruling oneself, lived in the moral heart of the people. Now, Gandhi was being brilliant there, because what he was also saying when he invoked morality, to say that it lived in the moral heart of the people, was also to say that the imperial was not moral. That's why it could not, claim the legitimacy that it seemed to be claiming. So the fact that when he stressed the moral heart of the people, the fact that imperial could at no point of time have any claims to the morality that he was claiming is the brilliance of Gandhi. But at the same time, he made it very clear that by people, he did not mean the majority communities alone. This is a central contradiction in Gandhi, that the first part of what he is saying can easily be seized upon by a post-truth logic. And this, I think, is very interesting and therefore Gandhi becomes very interesting to study today, because sometimes I have this quarrel with Mahatma Gandhi. How could Gandhi not see that inevitably, invariably, hegemonic elite majorities would define what Swaraj would mean to them and to the nation. How could Gandhi not see it? The current imaginations around the nation by the moral heart of India, which is largely constituted by majority, a certain kind of a majoritarianism, is in that sense Gandhi in its post-truth, in his post-truth avatar. So this, I think, is an important critique that we need to make in order to, and it's a critique that comes nearly after a century, not in order to, in any way, it's not a criticism, but it is a deeper understanding, a deeper probing that we need at this historical juncture to make more relevance, to give more relevance to a particular kind of a philosophy which made what we are today. So also the fact that what you constitute as a hegemonic majority might not always align with constitutional moralities. Again, something that Gandhi has repeatedly talked about. So in a land with deep-rooted structures of inequality, by virtue of caste, by virtue of class, by virtue of gender. So to talk about the moral heart of the people without actually, if we are not sensitive enough to the fact that when Gandhi was talking about the moral heart, it was critically intersected by caste, by gender, by class. All these things were part and parcel of the morality that he was claiming. But the fact remains that this moral heart can tend to become, a post-truth rhetoric, if I can call it that. Now, Gandhi's notion of truth and his method of realizing it have shown the unique quality of combining reason with faith. Just a minute. I just wanted to read out a few things that, because I think to be talking about Gandhi and to not go into what he said, it would be a criminal act on my part. So when I talk about Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and I invoke his idea of Satya, I think I need to go back to this whole discourse that Gandhi began. He said, I quote, "The word Satya is derived from Sat, which means being. It is not a truth that you can take out of the being." Goes on to say, nothing is or exists in reality except truth. That is why Sat or truth is perhaps the most important name of God. In fact, it is more correct to say that truth is God than to say God is truth. This was Gandhi. Now, he also said, devotion to this truth is the sole justification for our existence. All activities should be centered in truth. If, we do not invoke the memory of these writings, at least, I think, again, we would bypass the idea of truth that was so central to Gandhi and which becomes more and more relevant today in the era of truth. In the era of post-truth, because he said truth should be the very breadth of our lives. And once this stage in the pilgrim's progress is reached, all other rules of correct living will come without effort. So, the kind of effort that you put into living will come effortlessly if you make truth the central principle of your living. But he also says, but without truth, it is impossible to observe any principles or rules in life. Now, when he talked about Swaraj, to go back to what I was saying, he said it is in the moral heart of the people that Swaraj rests. But what Gandhi qualified, and which we tend to forget today, is he hastily, it's almost prophetic. It was almost like he understood that there would come an age in which his words could be twisted. So he said, he made it clear again and again that by people, he did not mean any kind of majoritarian groups. So this central contradiction, as I said earlier, is very easy to be seized upon. And Gandhi himself, it's very convenient to forget what he said. In a vast country like this, there must be room for all schools of honest thought. I think the word honest there is very important. And he goes on to say, and the least, therefore, that we owe to ourselves as to others is to understand the opponent's viewpoint. And if he cannot accept it, respect it as fully as we expect him to respect ours. It is one of the indispensable tests, and I repeat, tests of a healthy public life and therefore fitness for Swaraj. Now, this whole idea he wrote in Young India, that the newspaper he ran. And he goes on to say in Young India that freedom of speech and freedom of pen is the foundation of Swaraj. If the foundation stone is in danger, you have to exert the whole of your might in order to defend that single stone. So the idea that Swaraj, the idea of Swaraj that Gandhi invokes, what is so central to it again is Gandhi's understanding, Gandhi's emphasis that this Swaraj is attainable only through two principles. One is truth and the other is non-violence. Now he says, if we wish to achieve Swaraj through truth and non-violence, gradual but steady building up from bottom upwards. These are crucial pointers as to what Gandhi meant, because the kind of qualifiers, the kind of very cautious phrases and words that he brings in to qualify what he's saying. He says bottom upwards by constructive effort is the only way, and this rules out the deliberate creation of an anarchical state for the overthrow of the established order in the hope of throwing up within a dictator who would rule with an iron rod and produce order out of it. So he's not for those kinds of power systems at all. And the proposition, the methodology for Swaraj that he installs is a bottom upwards kind of method, which I think is again something that we fail to take stock of when we invoke Gandhi, out of context in places where we want to bring in, or we want to invoke his name in order to gain a certain kind of a legitimacy to maybe things that Gandhi would have never endorsed. So what is so central to Swaraj as far as Gandhi is concerned, that it is in the lowliest of the low that he places Swaraj. He did not see that inevitably, invariably, the hegemonic, the power blocks would define what Swaraj meant to them. So the question then boils down to who is the moral heart of India? When it is interpreted to mean, a moral majority, that's when we encounter Gandhi in his post-truth avatar. And that is what we need to be cautious about. Because Gandhi says that Swaraj can be maintained only where there is a majority of loyal and patriotic people to whom the good of the nation is paramount above all other consideration, whatever, including their personal profit. Now, again, this becomes a juncture where there is almost a pouncing upon what Gandhi says, because the post-truth era seizes this to conflate patriotism with nationalism, which are two different things, interpreting it to mean that a bunch of patriotic people could bring about Swaraj. That is not what Gandhi meant, because he said that the truth that is partial here is that Gandhi was totally against performative nationalism. He was against performative nationalism. Instead, he advocated an accommodative, kind of nationalism. Because he says, it is not nationalism that is evil. He did think of this kind of a crass nationalism, a performative nationalism as being evil to a certain extent. And you have Tagore and Gandhi speaking about nationalism in a certain sense. So he goes on to say it is not nationalism that is evil, it is the narrowness, selfishness, and exclusiveness which is the bane of modern nations, which is evil. And he constantly condemns people who celebrate violence and aggression in the name of the nation. I think that is a point that we should not be missing at this historical juncture. But then what most of us miss is what Gandhi says in the next sentence. He says, my Swaraj, it's important. He says, my Swaraj will not be a result of murder of others, but a voluntary act of continuous self-sacrifice. So look at the way in which he shifts the idea of Swaraj from the other, from the kind of animosity that you foster with the other, instead turning it around to oneself. And he says it's a voluntary act of continuous self-sacrifice. How many of us invoke this phrase? Continuous self-sacrifice. My Swaraj, he says, will not be bloody. It will not be a bloody usurpation of rights, but the acquisition of power will be a beautiful land, natural fruit of duty, well and truly performed. It will provide amplest excitement of the Chaitanya type. It's very interesting, his choice of words. The Chaitanya type, not of the Nero type. It can come often, does come when the horizon is the blackest. Sometimes I think Gandhi was a poet. It can come, Swaraj can come. It often does come when the horizon is the blackest and the bleakest also. But I know that it will be preceded by the rise of a class of young men and women who will find full excitement in work and nothing but work for the nation. Now, today we often hear of situations where, these kinds of hegemonic building up of majoritarian concerns often do not align with the constitutional morality that, again and again, Gandhi seemed to be pointing at. He says democracy disciplined. Again, his choice of words, democracy disciplined and enlightened is the finest thing in the world. He doesn't speak of a blanket democracy. He qualifies it again. He says democracy disciplined and enlightened is the finest thing in the world. A democracy prejudiced, ignorant, superstitious will land itself in chaos and may be self-destroyed. Now, in a land with, this is what I want to say, in a land with deep-rooted structures of inequality, as I said, whether it be caste or whether it be class, whether it be religion or gender, this kind of an invocation of a particular kind of a morality belonging to certain communities or a certain kinds of hegemonic power blocks, that is where people tend to use a post-truth rhetoric. But Gandhi did say that the post-truth rhetoric often fails to take stock of it, because he said true democracy is not inconsistent with a few persons representing the spirit, the hope, and the aspirations of whom they claim to represent. I hold that democracy cannot be evolved by forcible methods. The spirit of democracy cannot be imposed from without. It has to come from within. So Gandhi's notion of truth and his method of realizing it have shown the unique quality of combining reason with faith. And I think this again is an important point that I want to make. This again in the post-truth, in the age of post-truth, appeals to large sections of people, helping them establish truth as value-driven. Because Gandhi himself said, you need your truth. It needs to have a unique quality of combining reason with faith. So it's very easy to, try to interpret this as truth being value-driven and faith-driven, or truth being a religious moral category. I think we need to be really critical there. I think we also need to critically analyze how Gandhi's views could have, unwittingly. I'm sure Gandhi, because again and again he points at, the qualifying statements that he is making. So to create this kind of power blocks, which are conducive to the flourishing of a political rhetoric that is grounded on morality rather than facts. So Gandhi's morality, in fact, it rests solid upon the facts that he's talking about. Say, for example, Gandhi's distrust of Western science and technology, about which so much has been written, both by Gandhi and by his opponents. Now, but then what we need to remember there is that the distinction Gandhi makes between a material West and a spiritual East, his espousal of celibacy and vegetarianism, his justification of caste, all these things, come with riders. Now, what happens is these riders are put aside. The kind of caution, the kind of empathy that he invokes again and again when he speaks of all this are kept aside, and certain things are taken out of context in order to maybe foreground Gandhi as a tool for many of the things that Gandhi would have never endorsed. So this is where I think we need to think of Gandhi as a methodology. I think as an academic, I'm not being irreverent there, but I'm also paying the highest tribute that I can as an academic when I say that we need to be careful of methodologies that invoke a post-truth Gandhi, because Gandhi also carried traces of an effective rhetoric, which I began talking about in the beginning. This effective rhetoric is the very method of resistance that he envisaged, because it was part of the moral, ethical, structures that he was talking about. And this effective rhetoric is central to Gandhi. He invoked protest marches, satyagrahas, all of which have a kind of an effective rhetoric to it, all of which had a performative, persuasive element to them. But there again, I think I like to end on a note of caution by saying that to allow this kind of a performative, persuasive element, to take it out of the context in which the ethicalities and moralities within which Gandhi was talking about, or performing these persuasive elements, to talk of them out of context, to take them out of context, to shed the morality and ethics that were woven into their very texture. This is something that post-truth era, we should anticipate. It's already being done, but it is also, and from different quarters. I'm not saying one or the other, but from different quarters. Even the market has started invoking Gandhi in a particular way. Capitalism has started invoking Gandhi in a certain way. Neoliberalism, corporatism, nepotism, anybody can invoke Gandhi. So this is where I think the fundamental ethical and moral quality of his performative politics need to be kept in mind in anticipation of the strategies that the post-truth era uses in order to co-opt Gandhi. Thank you so much for a very patient listening. Vijay?
Thanks, Meena, for that wonderful, insightful talk. I'll just, have a quick recap of what you said, and then we can, go in for the interactions, and you can take questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Professor Meena has, talked about what is truth, post-truth, and post-truth rhetoric, and how Gandhi has been taken out of context under various situations, and she cautions about that in her talk. And she has also given us a very vivid description of what is Gandhi's notion of Swaraj, Swaraj as a continuous self-sacrifice, and his views on democracy as a disciplined and enlightened form, and how democracy has to be viewed today, and Gandhi's notion of truth, Gandhi's views on material West and spiritual East, and she ends on a note of caution not to take Gandhi out of context in a post-truth era. And I request the participants
Yes.
to
Question and-
shoot their questions, and Professor Meena, I'm sure, will have sufficient time to answer them. We do have sufficient time, so you can ask questions, one by one.
Participants.
Yeah, ಹೇಳಿ.
Good afternoon, ma'am. There's a question being asked by one of the participants by name Dr. Varna Ravindra. She wants to congratulate you, and then a question is this.
Veena Ravindra ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ನೋಡು. Okay, good.
The question goes this way: Gandhiji's principle of truth coincide with its principle of tolerance. Do you agree with this? If so, can you please elucidate?
When I said that, because Gandhi repeatedly qualifies what he says, as all through my talk, I've been talking about it. And tolerance, I think, is part of the moral and ethical principles on which he bases his idea of truth. And without tolerance, there is no empathy. And without empathy, the kind of sahodaryam that he's talking about, the kind of brotherhood he's talking about, becomes impossible. So tolerance is implicit to what Gandhi is talking about, I think. I'm not a Gandhi scholar. I can only, I mean, this is my common understanding of Gandhi, what Gandhi does.
ಗಾಂಧಿ ಮತ್ತು ನಾರಾಯಣ ಗುರು ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನಾ?
Meena, we have a question from our friend here, Professor Shekhar of the Gandhian Studies. He would like to have your observations on Gandhi and Narayan Guru. Is it
Narayan
possible
Guru,
for you to talk about it?
I mean, I'll give it a shot. See, when the Vaikam Satyagraham was happening, where the Avarnas were not allowed temple entry. And when Gandhi came to negotiate with the temple authorities, he was not allowed actually to be part of that space in which the temple was situated. He was actually put up in a different space, and then he had to come to a common ground where negotiations could take place. So it gives very vital pointers. Even somebody like Mahatma Gandhi, to be ostracized both spatially as also ritually, religiously onto certain spaces is a very vital pointer as to what Narayana Guru was trying to do in the spatiality that we call the spatial geography that we call Kerala. Now Kerala, it's a very complicated society, and if you look at the 19th century, unlike in many other parts of India, it was not only touch that was polluting, even gaze was polluting. The Savarna should not be gazing at the Avarna, and a person who from the lower caste who came in front of the feudal lord had actually to go backwards and erase his or her footsteps. So this was the kind of caste practices that were part and parcel of a highly ritualistic kind of society. So it was into this that Narayana Guru, somebody like Narayana Guru, brings in his idea of an Irava Shiva, a Shiva who belongs to the lower caste, and he calls it Irava Shiva. And if a temple priest can consecrate the Shiva, I can consecrate it myself. So it was a protest that again had a certain performative terrain. He actually takes this Shivalingam and consecrates it and says, now it is Irava Shiva, it's a deity. So the performative politics of Narayana Guru, I think, is something that it's common to both Gandhi and to Narayana Guru. And I find that the emotional appeal, again, the emotional appeal to a certain sense of, the moral other is crucial in our understanding of both Guru and Gandhi. I don't know whether I have partly answered your question, but I'm not a Guru scholar again.
Okay. You have another question there? Yeah. There's another question, Meena. This is from Padmaja Desai. What are the thoughts of women in the view of Gandhi ji? That is what is typed there. Probably the question is, what are Gandhi's views on women? I mean, I think that is what the participant is planning to ask.
Most often, there's a lot of gender critique as far as Gandhiji is concerned.
Yeah.
See, what happens is there is a certain kind of an anachronism there, because you are using the moral standards of our age to go back and pass your judgments on people who lived in a different age. Say, for example, to talk about pure politics or gender politics in the same way, why didn't Gandhiji talk about that? Sometimes it becomes a question that we really need to be a little critical about.
Yes.
But then again, there are problems in the entire Gandhian discourse, which has seriously upset many feminist scholars. For example, the sex workers bringing him money, bringing him their labor money and contributing it to, saying that we want to contribute it to the cause of Satyagraha, and Gandhi says, I don't want it. So the kind of delegitimization of a particular kind of work, it's sometimes you have a certain kind of an agony looking back at some of the things that even this whole question of sexuality, for example, Gandhi's entire treatise on his experiments with truth, which was a male experiment in a sense, because what about the women who were accompanying him? What about the women? What about their experiments with truth? So these are all questions that have been raised, but I think we need to give it its due space, and understand that this was an era, this was an age in which there were struggles that could not be pinned down to gender struggles. So there are issues with regard to caste, there are issues with regard to class, there are issues, as I said, with regard to sexuality. But then there is at the same time an overarching moral philosophy that we need to be slightly more empathetic to. It's very easy to be standing in 2021 and being judgmental about something that happened 100 years back. I think that kind of a critical understanding and an emotional understanding is necessary when we look back on Gandhi.
There are two more questions there.
Yeah.
One is on Gandhi's style of writing. What do you think about the style of language used by Gandhi in his writing? It's too broad.
It's a very broad question, but there are many contradictions. If you look at Gandhi, if you read him in depth, there are so many contradictions in Gandhi, which again, the whole Gandhi Ambedkar, debate is something that we really need to be thinking about, and we really need to focus, because many of the pitfalls, many of the lacunae that Gandhi seemed to be so completely blind about have been taken up by Ambedkar. So even as I speak of the ideological, along with the ideological, the central contradictions of his philosophy sometimes are part and parcel of the equivocations that form his style. It's a very equivocal style, so it could be read either way, and that is the reason why that style itself becomes problematic, because it is easy co-option in the age of post-truth. So he did practice equivocation. There were ambiguities. There were times, even with qualifying statements, there were central ambiguities as far as some of his concepts went. But that was Gandhi.
Yeah. We can have one more question, and this is from I think no, on the top, Gandhi's writing and mele there. Can Gandhian thoughts and views effectively help today society better than the present?
Ram?
I don't think there is any kind of a panacea like that. To look for those kinds of panaceas itself, I think is faulty. But then many of the things that Gandhi said can be very vital pointers to talk about Swaraj as starting from the self, turning the onus upon oneself and invoking a certain kind of a moral and ethical human being that the self needs to be in order to think about ruling. I think these are things that our age needs. The empathy, the respect, the tolerance that he taught, the riders that he often qualified his statements with, are all partly, to be seriously studied, and they have to be part and parcel of the way we look at Gandhi. I think overarching criticisms or overarching celebrations are not the need of the age. We need to critique Gandhi. It's not a sacred. His philosophy is not a sacred cow, because critiquing is the only way we move forward, according to the exigencies of the age. Critiquing and engaging with the ideas of Gandhi, I think, is crucial to our age, not adulation.
Madam, do you know Ian Kali, madam? One strugglist from Kerala.
Yeah,
Ian Kali.
Yeah.
Any influence from Gandhi? Ian Kali?
Gandhi was definitely influenced by all these. I think Guru and Ian Kali, he was definitely influenced. But the specific influences, sir, I have not looked at that.
Oh, I see. This is very senior most. Okay. Please. Madam, Professor
Rudramani from
Department of English.
Department of English. Meena, I think you have met him long back.
Yeah.
Congratulations, for your erudite kind of lecture. I have Gandhi was never against eradication of untouchability, but he sticks to his guns, saying that we're not sure. How do you think that the same thing is applicable for the present scenario, like?
No, definitely not. That's why I said there are contradictions in Gandhi, and let's address those contradictions. Maybe let us take him and put him in dialogue with others of his times, with whom he differed. Not only with the kind of adulation that he had in his age, but also people he critiqued him in his age. That is where Ambedkar becomes so crucial to our understanding of Gandhi.
The kind of political system that prevails now,
yeah,
can also be again related to that. That is where Ambedkar strongly opposes Gandhi.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Meena, for the wonderful talk, and thanks for joining us and spending your.
You're not inviting me for lunch, Vijay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I would love to. Why don't you fly from Trivandrum? And
Okay.
I have got a couple of announcements to make for the participants. Please just be online. We have done some rescheduling. The talk titled A Gandhian Alternative Vision of Sustainable Development, which was scheduled for 2:45. It will begin at 2:15. From 2:15 to 3:15, we will have Professor Yamankumar's talk, A Gandhian Alternative Vision of Sustainable Development. Then from 3:15 to 3:30, we'll have a tea break. And from 3:30, we will have Professor H.M. Rudraswamy's talk on Gandhian methods to fight social evils. Please note these changes. So the next talk after the lunch break will be at 2:15. That is Professor Yamankumar. Then at 3:30, we'll have Professor H.M. Rudraswamy after the evening's tea break. Thank you. So please join us around 2:15. Thanks, Meena, once again. We miss you for the lunch. And I hope I will compensate for that when we meet next time, either in Delhi or in Trivandrum. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.